is James. Welcome back to the Mouthful, podcast dedicated to understanding and learning about people's past and talking to interesting guests. Let's share some stories and learn about our guest today. I have my friend Joanne. I have known her for a long time now. I don't know, how long has it been? When did we work together?
I I'm going to say, what, 10 years has it been? 10,
Oh
15, maybe
wow.
more?
Um, yeah, so I was right 2011. I was right out of school. That was
Is
my
that?
first job. Yeah, it was my first job. I was freshly 18 and ready to make money. Yeah, wow, that was, oh my god, that's 12 years ago now then.
A long time.
A long time. Yes, and since that time, life has gone on. We've had different jobs, moved along, and but we've still kept in contact. And I've always appreciated Joanne's style, her outlook on life, her kindness, and just absolute, like, it's I don't know, you have like a spiritual kindness about you. It just radiates. Sometimes you meet people like that, and not often, of course, very rarely, but you just have it emanates from you. It's just I don't know, I don't really know how to describe it, but just a really great person. um so I'm so glad to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. And of course, all my guests are interesting, but Joanne is particularly interesting for her artistic endeavors, her beautiful artwork that she makes. And I wanted to, talk to her about her life story, get some background about her artwork and creative outlets that she uses, creative inspirations that she has. So, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So you have some excellent artwork that I've always appreciated. I thought was amazing. When did you start messing around with art?
I was 34, 35, and around there.
Oh,
Up to
really?
that point, I thought that I could only do stick figures, and we had no money, and I said, well, I might as well to entertain myself. I picked up a pencil and a paper and said, this is free, so started sketching, and from there went on.
Wow.
Yeah, found I could do more than stick figures.
Interesting. That's a very I never knew that. So you started very early. I mean, sorry, you started pretty late on, versus like a lot of people I've talked to who say they might even start at like 9 years old and they're just doing ugly stick figures, but they progress faster than I had. Most people would have. Had you? Why? I guess. Do you think that's natural? Do you think it became skill? How fast do you think you? What was it, a natural talent that you didn't know you had?
I think it is. The thing I think was, as a child, um, there were a lot of boundaries in place. Being brought up in a very religious atmosphere and very
Okay.
strict, and very broke. So there wasn't opportunities necessarily, and I
Yeah.
think that when I tried to do something, if you try to draw and you see a stick figure, you're like, okay, I'm not good at that.
Mm.
Uh, um, I was good at sports, so and they were free with school,
Hmm.
so I did those kinds of things. Yeah, yeah. I
Okay.
think that my creativity to flow. I think that, at least for myself, a sense of freedom, a sense of self of control of yourself. I think I felt very suppressed in the environment that I was, and so when I finally realized that I could try to do things that I hadn't tried before, and then saw that I was, doing well at them, or at least enjoying them. And for me, it really, in the beginning, it didn't matter. It wasn't about producing an end product. And in fact, it still isn't. It's more about the process and the joy that it brings.
Okay. Um, and I could see that because you enjoy it seems like you enjoy making it, even if it's not going to be, like you said, even if it's not going to be sold. You don't necessarily sell all of your paintings.
No, no, absolutely. It truly is about the process. Even when I've held paint nights and I explain to people that I don't hold a paint night where I say, here is a picture of a sunset that you're going to paint. Everyone pick up flat brush number A and let's go ahead and paint. For me, it's more about therapeutic. It's more therapeutic, and let's relax. I would like you to relax enough that you don't care anymore what the outcome is. That you're
Hmm.
just in that moment. And sometimes you're surprised and you produce something that's wonderful, and other times you're like, but I had a great time.
Yeah, exactly. About the experience then. Okay. So so for you, you believe it was natural too. When did you realize that it was more of a that you did have a skill level that was higher than most people could achieve?
See, and I think that I have a skill level that most people can achieve.
I
Uh,
thought you might say that.
I think that I just lost the I can't attitude,
Okay.
and yeah, yeah.
Okay, you're the queen of humility, so I thought that might be what you'd say. Okay, well, I could see that how the defeatist attitude can stop a lot of people from even trying. I used to be that way where I can write. I always had known I could write, but I was terrible at sketching, very terrible at sketching. And I would even say worse than most people in high school because I remember that like there'd be times where you'd have to do something and I'd be really embarrassed because it would be worse than the other kids and the other people. So I kind of think I stopped. And then I think I don't know what came about it. Just maybe create the creative madness that I might get one day, where I started to sketch a little bit, and now I'm not good. I'm not good at any point, but there's some things I wanted to just make like heraldry for my world, that I kind of just wanted to do myself. Some designs of outfits and gowns, medieval gowns. I did a sketch of one of my characters, which didn't turn out very well, like for the face at least. Everything else for her body was pretty good, but I was really proud of myself for doing it because I sketched out like what it would look, and I worked on it a lot. It took like an hour just to do the form herself because no, I don't want that, and then but it worked out the dimensions there. I just did her face was too bad, but other than that, like yeah. So I do think you have to get over the defeatist attitude and just try something new.
And you have an eraser. I mean, it's nothing is permanent there. When I am working with people that have the attitude that I can't, and I say, oh no, you can.
Hmm.
I say everything. This is what I love about art. It's very forgivable.
Right.
If and for me, at least for me, there's no judgment because we're the biggest judge, right? Um, and I, to me, if you come in and you sit down and you've painted better than the day before, or you have sketched better than the day before, it takes it's get rid of that defeatist attitude.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you might be inspiring me. I got some paint stuff, and I hadn't actually sat down and painted, but I'm like, why haven't I not? I enjoy coloring in coloring books, and even if it's very intricate coloring books. But I mean, I should just do it. I should just try it.
We're usually not good at anything the first time we try anything, right?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. That's very true. Well, so you have progressed from there. When did you start to sell your artwork or even do commissions for people?
Uh, uh, I'm going to say 37 or 38.
Oh, wow.
And yeah,
Okay. I think you have a natural talent then. I mean, I think they say like common period of time for someone to become proficient is like 7 to 10 years. But then you were just a few years afterward. You said, "I'm gonna sell my artwork."
I do have a kind of a. I like to whatever I do, I whatever it is, I pour heart and soul and passion and do 120%. So, waiting for 10 years wouldn't have been an option. I gave myself the time, and wherever we put our attention, there it will flourish, right?
Yes, yeah. I can definitely attest to how you pour yourself into something that you're dedicated to. I mean, even at our job where we worked, and I hated that job. You were always so like on it.
Yes, I really tried. Uh, yes, even though if you're set up, and that one there, we kind of set up for failure in some ways, but no, yeah, continue to try.
Were you dedicated to? Were you? I'm curious. Were you dedicated to that job, or were you just pretending to be dedicated like the rest of us mostly?
No, I was definitely. I don't. I have this. I don't understand how people can wake up in the morning and say, "Let me go to the world and just do mediocre today." So, to me, no matter what you do, whether it's cleaning toilets or answering phones with miserable people, I think we should do our best. And I think that at the end of the day, that you're proud and you're happy. You know.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. Yeah. So yeah, so that was your artwork that you've been working on, and so you still sell commissions? Um, do you want to say how much you sell them for, or where they can find your commissions
Oh,
requests?
everything would depend upon the so oftentimes when I sell my own things, it's the price is based on how much I love it and want to keep it. So if in fact I love it, like, oh, the price is going up, um, and how much time it took, of course, right? So when people have commission, I mean, oftentimes I will do things because I love them and they want something, and I'll paint it for you. So zero. Um, but as for, it would depend on the level, how much time I'd have to put into it and how difficult it was.
Okay, certainly understandable. Yeah, I love that. But yeah, you're more of the artist than the businessman. Sometimes people have like, okay, so it's gonna be $30 for this, $60 for this size, $80 for this, and very very boom 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 boom. But you're just like, oh, I have to suss it out.
Yes, absolutely.
That's fair. That's a fair way to think about it. Okay, so yeah, so going on that. So what do you think about um, where your creativity comes from? Where do you think it comes from? Do you have inspirations? Do you think it's supernatural? Where do you think creativity comes from?
Hmm. I think that some people have a natural talent whether it's because of the mind and hand coordination, the mind telling the hand what to do. I mean, that takes practice to be able to get that down. But the actual creative part of it, when you're putting something new, completely new down, I think that comes from source. For myself, the things that I have loved the most, the things that I have been most in awe of when I've done them, I start with absolutely nothing. I throw down some paint. I have no idea where I'm going or what's going to happen. And then I
Hmm.
go into a zone. And when I go into that zone, I literally, I couldn't go back and redo some of the things that I've done because I wouldn't know what color combinations that I made or how to recreate them.
Oh
Because to
wow.
me, then I have to stop and think. And when I have to stop and think, then I'm here. So when I completely go zone out, yeah. So for me, oftentimes I've even said that whether it's something I've written or whether it's something that I've painted, uh, it's not, I can't take complete credit for it.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay, that's understandable. I could see that for how you are. You're a very spiritual, um, flowing person. You. That's your type of spirit.
Yeah, yeah. It is, well, it's a wonderful way to live. I mean, when you can relinquish the need to control things and relinquish the need to even be good at something, I'm going to say, and you just move into the flow. Yeah, it's a happy place to be.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And also, you don't rely on that for income necessarily,
No, no, I don't.
which is good. It's good that you don't need to have that as more than a recreational pursuit if that's what you want to do on the day, versus like having to really be able to make sure that you sell your artwork, your paintings.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm
And you.
hoping when I retire to dedicate more time to it and then maybe, have it as a source of income, but it still wouldn't be the source of income.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would be in that position.
Yeah, and you work at a school. You work with kids, right?
Yes, presently I am. Yeah.
Oh, how's that?
It is hands down the best job that I've ever had. Uh,
Really?
absolutely. The the these the children haven't learned to mind their well, they okay. Children children let source flow through them. The authenticity that I get to witness every day is an honor, you know. Um, yeah, I'm honored to be there.
Hmm. I mean, it must be. I. Yeah. Well, what ages are they?
I'm working mainly with age from P to 3, so which is six, 5 to 9 year olds,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, and but then I also was given asked to go and work with the 10 to 12 year olds. So I did a big
Hmm.
project with them.
Hmm.
Now they are different. The older ones, they have learned to put on their face, and they've learned fear, and they've learned shame, and so it's a different thing entirely working with them. But the younger ones, no, yeah, they're they just let it flow.
You mean that they're just very blunt and mean?
Yeah. And well, you know what? This is the thing is, what is meanness? I mean, meanness can be considered mean when somebody says something that we perceive, we take as hurtful,
Mm-hmm.
but then we're responsible for our own emotions. So, for an example, one of the children had said he had called somebody um, fat, and so we were talking to him about how that would have hurt her feelings,
Yeah.
and he said, "But she is," and right. So then we're like, well, even if she is, that it still would be. We have to consider people's feelings because it's okay to be honest. It's not okay to be hurtful, which is where we're trying to explain that to them at this point, right at that age.
Yes.
And so he was asked. Um, I said, besides, I said, I don't think she is. I said, everything is relative, and I don't think she is fat. And so then he was asked if he thought I was fat. And he goes, well, no, but you are big. And and I guess so you can be hurt by it if you want to be, but to me, I'm just like, I admire. He was just being honest. He wasn't trying to hurt me, you know. So now as an
Yeah.
adult, I go around saying, I'm not fat. I'm big.
Well, you're neither of those things. You're tall and lean.
But anyway,
Um,
yes,
that well, that's I'm glad that you found that endeavor then, because it's it sounds like it's rewarding. You think it's rewarding.
absolutely. I think somebody else said to me that it sounds like you found your purpose, and I said yes. But I will say this to back up a bit. 4 years ago, I had a vision I mean, there was a pulling inside of me, first of all, that Nova Scotia, and I've never been to Nova Scotia before. I don't know a soul here, but I felt like I was supposed to be here. I
Oh, weird.
tried selling my home. It didn't sell at that time, and I was confused. I thought, I don't know, I thought that this is where the universe wanted me. But I just was pushing things as I normally do, pushing things. Okay, now let's get this done. It just wasn't the time, so I had to wait. And then when it was the right time, I came out here. But the vision that I had was that there were children all around me, and they were all, and I was so happy in this vision. I was so happy that I thought when I came out, I thought I must be going to die, because you can't be that happy and still be alive on this earth. But the children were all running all around me, and they were going, Mama Joe, Mama Joe. And I woke up, and I thought, when I came up from the vision, I'm like, I'm not having more children. And my
Right.
grandkids didn't call me Mama Joe, so I couldn't figure this out. So when I came here, um, I was looking for at home work. I didn't want to drive in the winter, so I thought if I got at home work, that I could avoid going out to driving in the winter. But anyway, I found the advertisement, and went to apply for it. And it wasn't until I was there that I realized that I was to be there. And I have never begged. And I don't know if I actually begged, but yeah, I even teared a little bit when I said, I really think I'm supposed to be here. Please hire me. And then when I'm there, I realized all the children, they call me Miss Joe. So they're all running around me, and they're saying Miss Joe, Miss Joe. So to me, that was close enough to Mama Joe. I certainly, take on that role. And yeah, so to know where you are where you're supposed to be is also a wonderful feeling.
Wow, that is. I mean, I wish I could get a mission like that. What am I supposed to do? Because that's always the. You never know. You don't know if you're doing the right thing sometimes.
Well,
I'm glad
I,
that you do now.
yeah, yeah, it's a wonderful feeling.
That's yeah, that is beautiful that you have that vision, and then that's where you want to be, and it's such a big change. That's from a coast to coast. We're from the West Coast. We're from the island, and then all the way across a continent, a continent.
Yes, it was
Huh.
pretty amazing. I drove by myself and faced a lot of my fears. I hate, if I have a fear, I'm like, no way, you're not going to keep me. I've lived probably, I'm 61, so I'm 62 in a couple weeks. So I've got like 20 years maybe. And I'm not, I'll be danged if I'm going to be going to my grave saying, oh, I didn't do this because I was too afraid. So no way. I had to face all of them.
That's good. Well, I'm not my stage. How do you live that way? How do you get that way? How do you have no fear?
I think that part of it is an aging thing. I mean, I can't speak for all people of my age, because I think some people are still living with fears. But I think for myself anyway, I said, like, wow, like, I've got 20 years left. I mean, I got a tattoo here we go, at 60. You got your hair done. So embrace 60. I got the tattoo.
Yeah.
Um, but and I realized, if this is it. If I don't live it now, it's gone.
Hmm. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you never know how long you'll live either. That's true.
No, but really, you can start living that now. And I say,
Exactly.
you live at 30.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I find that as a struggle currently. I just feel, I think what might happen is I feel like it's the not I don't think it will be quarter life, but um third of the life um crisis, which is I think happens to a lot of people. I've who've been before me, and then you feel it like, oh, I'm 30, and I thought I'd be here, and I think it's also slightly different now, because in my generation, in for a lot of the life goals that we would have planned, or our parents would have talked about, they we haven't been able to achieve them because of economy. Because like for example, some people think, oh, I would have had a house by now. I would have been, I would have been this far, but we may not be able to. It's pretty common that we're not able to yet in where we thought we would have been because of because of the economy, and how pricing changed and everything, and getting a house is like 3 times as much as it used to be, and all these other things. So
Yes.
I know I'm not alone in that, but I don't know how to deal with it in some ways, because I'm like, what do I? The podcast was one aspect. I'm like, okay, I should have just tried something new and not be afraid. And it's been a journey. So that's one way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me see. But other than that, what inspires you the most when you want to create art or get a creative outlook? What it inspires you?
I don't think that anybody can really. I mean, I think inspiration is a. Oh, I'm trying to think that into words. It's a spark, and how do you know what two things are going to create that spark? Like I have never been one to be a loss for ideas. I've been writing poetry since, that's the longest. Like I don't even know. I probably was 6 or 7 when I started writing poetry.
Oh, okay,
I
yeah.
So the painting, it was just another extension of creative of a creative outlet, just
Hmm.
another creative outlet. But inspiration, I don't know, like, because to me that is godsend. I mean, how do you know when you love somebody? I mean, it happens. There's two sparks, right? I guess that's for me as inspiration. I don't know.
Okay. Um, well, and yes, you're always in. It seems like every way you're very creative. I've read your writing as well. Have you ever thought of writing a book?
Oh, I've written a book.
You have written a book.
Yes, I have. Um, it is a children's, young adult, actually, book, and I've had publishers look at it.
Okay.
And but it takes a. You have you submitted your? Have you finished your book yet?
I so I finished the writing of a, book one and book two. It's going to be a long series. And then, but my problem is editing, because I edited the second book actually because my process was much better. I would write a chapter or two, and then I could go back and edit this first look, and so it was much cleaner. I wish I knew to do that on my first book, because my first book, it's a slog to go back and kind of remember, like, oh, this is what I was trying to portray here and everything like that. But and I hate editing. I'm really bad at editing. My mind is, I think of, oh, I should edit for this period of time, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, I could connect the dots from this thing to this thing in the third book, and then I start writing the third book a little bit again. So it's very hard for me to stay on track, because that's not the fun part.
Yes. Well, the editing, although I had an editor look at mine, and a friend of mine who is an editor, she looked at it. Well, she's a teacher, but she edits. And it's not my fun part either, but I'm also somebody, when I write, I've read other people's writers' work, and I don't get it. Like, it is so jumbled for me that I'm like, how do you continue on? But they get the story done. They get it out quicker, because they're just going into that writing, the same space that I go to when I'm painting. So when I'm writing, if I go back and I read, so I write, and then I go back and read, and if there's a misspelling or a misgrammar, I'm like, okay, no, I have to change that, because then so it was a longer process for me. but the actual part that I don't like again is the business end. So when you have to submit to each time to a publisher, you've got to you have to read so many of their books to find out if this is the right publisher that's going to be for your book. You want to every single publisher has different criteria that they want. Some want a cover page, some don't want. Some want it to just be blah blah. So every single time you have to redo it, and that takes copious amounts of time. That I quite frankly get bored of that part of it, and
Oh,
so
okay.
after 2 years, okay, you know what, I'm going to do it now, and so I've sent it off. I think it's been now 3 publishers over the years, but it is not like I finished writing it. I don't even know, maybe 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah. So it's there. It sits.
Oh, okay. So you just sitting that limbo. I could see that would be hard. I think I would like that part more than editing though, because at least it's the exchange of like, oh, the new idea of like even the synopsis, or working. I wrote out a rough draft of the synopsis and stuff like those types of, or what do you call it, the book cover, but which was obviously going to change when publishing to all those other things that you're saying to each company. But I actually still find that pretty fun because it's still part of the creative writing process for me of like, okay, well, this is what it would be. Trying to shorten it is hard and fun. Like, okay, what would be interesting to them, and talking to, and it's also not collaborative, but when I was doing that for the synopsis, I was talking to a lot of people who read a lot, and getting their takes on it, because they were saying, like, some people saying, oh, that people don't care about all, going into detail about how different your world is in this and this other way. Just some people might say, what is the most interesting thing for like the romance part of it, because the romance is a part of my books. Obviously it has to be, but it's not like, it's not as much as what would you say, like Philippa Gregory is all about romance. That her stories are all about romance. So it's an aspect, but especially in the first book, it's not even there. I wanted each of the characters to be really individual themselves and go on different journeys. Did I tell you about my story? I don't even know if I have.
Well, I remember you talking about it 10 years ago when we met. You talking about it. In fact, you even sent me You sent me a piece of it or something, asking me to read a piece or.
Was it really
Yeah.
that long? Oh no, that's terrible. That's horrible because it's been so long and I didn't. Well, actually, to be fair, the 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 version that you probably read was a really older version, and I actually lost that the copy of it in a tragic laptop accident. Um,
Those are the worst.
yeah, well, and then but it actually was probably the best thing for it, because it made me scramble to remember all the details of what I wanted to write, and then I redid it about, I think maybe it is probably when I first started writing it, maybe yeah, probably 5 years ago now, the first book, it's now cleaner. It's just I like the world better. I can see everyone. There's different things I use as well. I use apps to be face morphing, and this person as an inspiration to this person, and then I make a new person out of those face morphs. And so obviously it's been a process, and it's really like one of the best tools I've had is to be able to visualize the world through modern technology and artwork, and so yeah, like that's really, I don't know, it's been a journey, and I promised I will myself I will have the first book edited this by the end of this year, and I think I'm holding to that. I believe I can do that. And I think that's really my only hang up so far, because like I said, my second book I had actually edited rough myself, only myself, but rough draft. So it's much cleaner. It flows much better. I wrote a little bit of the third book as well, and that same thing. I had that same style. So once I get this first book edited, then I think I'll be it'll be smoother sailing, at least to going towards a publishing.
Well, I will send you an email, or I'll send you a message a month before the end of the year to say, where are you? Have you done something? Have you finished it yet?
I will. I have to. I will. It's yeah, I have to do it. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to talk about my book or not. If you're not, it's like,
Oh, yes.
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I can do a pretty quick rundown of it. So it's basically a medieval world where there's a tiny bit of magic, but it's not humans don't use this magic. It's kind of like how do I explain it? So think of the continent of Africa, but if it was switched and it was like Europe was on it, so that type of style. So there's three different. Before there was kingdoms, three different kingdoms. They were all of a similar race, like ethnicity, but they had split into different kingdoms. But very recently, about 21 years ago, all the kingdoms are gone. They fell into war. Their kings got killed, and so everyone is just fighting lord to lord. There's war, and you might be able to trust your neighbors, you might not be able to. So that's the setting of the book, and in my book, there's my main character who Ferris is. He's the adopted son of the Lord, and he has learned and has the privilege of being able to have lived with a family that loved him, but he isn't their blood, right? So he's still adopted. And I'm adopted, so I thought that was I have that insight of all the feelings you get, right, for having been adopted, and all the all the different feelings you will feel over time as well, right? It's changing, constant flowing. And so he has that, and then there's his a brother. He has two brothers, but one brother is the heir because he's the first blood of the son of the Lord, right, and lady. But he struggles with feeling overshadowed by his more attractive, older, stronger, more militaristic-minded older brothers. So he's another character. And then the third character is this kind of mysterious woman who only recently moved to the city. She's beautiful and exotic looking, and yeah, her past is a mystery. People want to know more about her because they want to get with her and that type of thing. But there's secrets that she has and harbors. So that's just the plot of the first book is a plague happens and they're trying to figure out what's going on. Ferris is sent on a journey to try and find a doctor who can help cure it. I don't know if you like Game of Thrones. Did you watch or like Game of Thrones?
Well, okay, I don't watch TV, but I loved Game of Thrones.
Okay.
That's what I was thinking when you were talking. I thought, well, kind of like Game of Thrones.
Yeah, there's similarities. There's less magic, which is surprising, but like even less magic than in Game of Thrones. But there is a little bit like what I'll say is like spiritual. Not I shouldn't say spiritual. It's Do you know when you astral project during dreams?
Yeah.
During sleep. So I have very strong vivid dreams. But I also get, so I get powerful dreams. I'm aware in my dreams, almost all of them. I can control them. Like, no, I don't die because I'm like, no, I change it and I use magic so a lot of the magic is based on dreams that may Maylind, the female character, will have. So that is an element in there as well. But yeah, no, it's there's similarities to Game of Thrones. One thing I didn't like, why I brought it up, is that Game of Thrones. I love the series. It's my favorite series, book, TV show. I love it. I love that world. But I do. One thing that annoys me about the books is that there's just so many families, and sometimes he's so random with why he's showing us. Like he'll have one chapter where he shows a random character in a house, and I'm like, why do I care about these people right now? I have the main character. There are main characters, but he'll just throw in a random person. Like, why? Why do this? It's interesting because it's showing like, oh, this is what in this random castle. This is what they think about their lord, the higher lord. But why do I care? I feel like it's kind of it's too much. One thing I wanted to do in my story is that it's there's a term that's going to be used in the second and onward book, and it's actually a Haitian motto, from the Haitian motto. Latin, how every country has a motto that they use. It's strength and unity, and I think that's so. It's revolves around the main family, and it's not as like, oh, this is a random character here and there. There are other characters that will be added in who are in this world, and hopefully are on their side and stuff like that. But I don't like that it gets Game of Thrones gets pretty sporadic in who you're paying attention to, and I don't know, that type of thing. But that's basically the summary of the first book that I wrote.
Can you read us the opening paragraph?
Oh my god. I actually could do that because that part is edited. No, what? No, you. Actually, it might be. Oh, I could do that actually. You put me on the spot, but I could do that. Okay. Let me find where it is. I believe it is here. I could do that. I never thought to do that. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I never thought to do that. Like, use the podcast that way. You're full of innovation, I have to say.
There's something to be said by hearing it being read by the author. The inflections.
I agree.
Absolutely. So.
My grandma was couldn't read. I mean, she was a reader for many, many years of her life, of course. But then her eyesight became too bad, and she had to listen to audiobooks for, I think, the last 10 years of her life. But she would listen to them as prolifically as if she was reading. So I definitely have always thought that's something I want to do. Okay. I'm nervous. Okay. First time I've ever written anything, read it out. I've given the prologue, of course, to people, but okay. The wind rustled through the trees, and the rain showered down on the earth. Above in the sky was a blanket of clouds, isolating the earth from the sun. It wasn't nighttime, yet it seemed like it was due to the bulwark of clouds darkening the land. Ferris looked up. Where's the sun? When will it shine through? Then he spotted it to one side of the sky, a dim yellow sphere lingering above the grayish shroud. The weather would worsen with a storm brewing. His only hope was the sun giving a chance of relief should the storm come. He spotted a bird within a tree. He squinted. It looked like an eagle of some sort, and it sat with its mate, 2 adults atop a nest. He didn't see the chicks, but he sensed there were 3, safe within the nest and their parents' watchful eyes. He was walking the path through the woods, a trail he knew well. Despite having walked it many times, he suddenly sensed he was alone, as he had never been before. He knew he should not be. The Count's Grove was the hunting grounds for his lord father, the Count of Eastwood, but titles didn't matter in nature. He had been taught to always be alert when at nature's mercy. Soon he would be a man. He had become 16 years old a month prior, and earlier this same day he had completed one of the 2 tests for a boy's rite of passage into manhood. Succeeding these tests was a requirement for him to be respected within his society. Any man can become old, but only the men of worth prove themselves, he remembered reading or hearing somewhere. The first test had been to list all the nobles and famous knights of Eastwood County throughout history. His father believed above all else a man should utilize knowledge, therefore knowing one's allies was important. Tomorrow he would do his next test, thus completing his rite of passage and becoming a man. That is, if he passed this second test. His task would be to walk these very woods, bring down a magnificent animal, and bring it home to lay at the feet of his father. Only then could he be called a man and no longer a boy. He imagined his parents' grinning pride, his younger brother trying to hide his envy. But why was he out here? The clouds had won. Raindrops were beginning to fall. Only a fool would go out hunting voluntarily in such weather. When he looked down from the sky, he found that the path had abruptly ended. He glanced behind him. The path to return the way he came was gone too. He would go forward through the woods. The grove was large but not endless. Surely he could find his way out if he walked in any direction. He braved these woods before this way, albeit while he had squires, his friends, by his side. He passed through the thick tree line. He walked for a short time, the rain seeping through his black hair and impeding his vision. Still he marched onward. The forest opened up suddenly to a riverbank. A small river did flow through the forest, he knew, so now he could follow it up downstream. The main difficulty was figuring out which direction would be faster, which would be a faster means of exiting the forest. He wasn't sure if he should follow it left or right, or where he came, but either direction would eventually lead out. He heard a grunt behind him. He heard a loud grunt behind him. A dark figure was at the tree line, eyes dark yet glistening with gold. He gave a mighty roar. He gave a mighty roar which shook the ground and nearly threw Ferris off balance. It took several steps emerging from the trees. A bear stood there, a tremendous male whose incredible size dwarfed Ferris. Ferris was tall for a man, but this creature appeared double his height and several times his size. He opened his mouth and roared again. This sounded like a bear's, far more than the previous utterance before it. Ferris felt his waist, fingering the belt he wore, which had a sheathed sword tied to it. He pulled his sword free and stood his ground. The bear was unimpressed. He charged forward on its hind legs. Ferris stepped back. His foot hit a stone, and he tripped backward into the river with a heavy splash. The bear is still coming, he realized, trying to swim away. Bears could swim surprisingly well. He had seen them do so before at a distance. Without ground below his feet, the bear had every single advantage over him. Ferris's own strokes were half the speed of his. Ferris saw the other side of the river and swam as hard as he could. If I don't get there, I'm dead. He nearly made it, yet felt the bear's jaw close on his left leg. He screamed, flailed, and tried to punch the bear. Before he could, he saw white water ahead and a sudden drop. I don't remember a waterfall. Yet there it was. He tried to pull himself free, but failed. The bear finally released him, but opened its mouth only to move forward and sink his teeth firmly into his neck. Ferris screamed. At the last second, they passed over the edge of the waterfall. Ferris felt himself falling to the waters below. The sun had come out to witness his death. It had burst through the clouds, illuminating the world and the splash that awaited him. As the water rushed towards him, he heard a growl behind him. Death was above and below him. Then he saw his sword falling in arm's reach from his grasp. He stretched, and with some effort his hand closed upon the hilt. He would hit the water, turn, and slay the bear. If I survive this fall, I will fight. As he hit the shimmering water, he felt its warmth. It was soft on his skin, and he felt no pain. He opened his eyes. Birds were chirping. The sun was shining through his glass window. It took another moment to realize this was in fact life and not heaven or a perverse form of purgatory. Then he understood it had only been a dream, and this was a new day. Not only that, it was his day. So that's a prologue.
Wonderful. So is Ferris a seer?
No, he is not. But dreams will play a part of this world. How I'll describe it without spoiling too much is that there is another race. There's two races, the humans, and then there's this it's an elven race. And they, well, more or less elven race, basically, with a lot of their features. And what how do I word it? How do I word this? Basically that they have powers of dream and meditation. They do astral projection. That's how they used to talk to each other. They still can do it. They talk to their gods that way. So what I will say is perhaps someone of their blood may have some traces of that magic power as well.
Okay.
I'll leave it as that. But yeah, that was actually really fun. I've never done that, and I will do that. I want to do an audiobook. I love that idea. I love the idea that it's I used to hate it when I was first writing it. I was like, oh, why do people, even young people, like audiobooks? But now I'm like, it's I know people who consume entirely that way, and it's a book, it's a story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so much. But I think it is an honor to be able to hear the author themselves read it.
I think
because,
so. Yeah.
Yeah. You get exactly what they mean then.
Mm-hmm. You know what, and that's a really good point too, because there's a lot of times when you are reading something in your own head, which some people prefer, is that you will even read it with a different inflection, and the writer, if you have an audiobook, that would be the inflection, right? There's things I used more of an inflection for certain things in what I was reading, right? So it's interesting. It is very interesting. That's true.
I've had other poets read my poetry on late night poetry radio, and I'm listening. I'm going, no, that's not it. And I'm like, well, then next time I'll have to call in and read my own.
Yes.
But it makes a difference. It totally does.
Yeah, that's true. Wow. And I mean, do you still do poetry?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Oh wow. You probably have a collection. You should make it not an anthology. It's it is an anthology, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, I again, it's one of the things that I also will do when I retire. Again, it's gonna take some. I have so many things planned. I'm telling you that I will have. There'll be no retirement for me.
Oh, I couldn't imagine you retiring. You're not that type of person.
I'm not that type of person. No.
My parents are similar ways where they will work more than they need. Then they're like, you're getting 70. You don't need to do this, and they'll make a garden again. They'll make a ditch. I'm like, why? You're old. Accept it. but. Enjoy it. I'd be like, I'm half alive, I'm half asleep. No, I don't think I actually could do that. I like the idea of being able to, and they think if you slow down, you'll die. So I could see you being similar to that.
Yeah, I think slowing down, even getting sick, is hard for me.
Yeah.
I'm not good at just sitting there. reading. You know what I'm saying? The sun lets me sit there and just go to no mind, and that's nice.
Yeah. Well, I find it hard. It's true. I do find it hard to sit because even I just had a week vacation, and my writing, I write 3 times, maybe 4 times as much. It's not a vacation creatively. It really isn't. I'm writing hours and hours of time, and like I'm probably going to be the same way as my parents. Even though I make fun of them, I'm probably going to be that way when I get there.
It's a good thing.
I think so too. Oh my God! So this was such a good good conversation. Yeah, interesting. I'm so glad you brought that up. I would never have thought that, but of course I should do that. Like eventually.
For sure. Yep. I've even thinking that there's like Audible. You know of Audible, and there's other where you can narrate. Why you could go into narrating books. Period.
Yeah. One of the things I've been contemplating, because it is pretty hard to figure out what I want to do, is that there's so many different ways to publish nowadays. I've talked to people who have published, self-publishing. There's people who make ads on Facebook, and then you can see ad for the book. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but, and that's they've made revenue that way, online only. You can go through to the traditional way of a publishing company. So it's hard. I don't, and you can just do audio. You could go straight to audio if you wanted. It's hard to know what would be best.
Um, Unless you go into a meditational state and see what the universe has, they can guide you.
Yeah,
And then, yeah,
I might do that one day and trying to figure out what I should do.
yeah.
Oh my God! Well, thank you so much for your time. Yeah, you enjoyed this conversation. You are always such a light, you always bring a smile to my face. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for the listeners, everyone who's made it this far and enjoyed the conversation. Please like, subscribe. It helps grow the channel. And I'll catch you on the next one.